Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Jack Hunter, a man of many lives, had spent the last 42 years as a Marine, a federal agent, and most recently, a deep-cover operative named Marco Velasquez. He'd been living as a mid-level arms dealer for 18 months, a transformation so thorough that even he sometimes forgot his true identity. His skin now bore the stories of a past he'd never lived, and his Spanish accent was so flawless it felt like a second voice. 15 years of hunting the world's most dangerous criminals had given him a predator's patience, a quiet and deadly calm. His current target, the Calderon Cartel, had been his obsession for 3 long years. Their leader, a brutal young man named Emilio Calderon, had built his empire on a foundation of fear and death. Emilio's cruelty was the stuff of legends, even among other traffickers. It was said he kept the bones of his rivals as trophies, a grotesque collection in his private study. One DEA informant had been fed to his pet tigers as the man's family watched. As Marco Velasquez, Jack had successfully infiltrated the cartel's inner circle, orchestrating weapons deals and building trust with key members. Every exchange was meticulously documented, every conversation recorded by advanced, undetectable listening devices. The operation was nearing its climax, a large-scale sting that would bring down the entire Calderon network. Jack's marriage to his wife, Sarah, had always been a difficult one. He'd first met her 12 years ago at a military hospital where she worked as a trauma nurse, healing the wounds he'd earned in combat. He was immediately drawn to her powerful mix of strength and kindness. Their son, Liam, now 15, was born during a rare period when Jack worked on domestic cases. But the life of an undercover agent had poisoned their relationship, the long absences and fabricated excuses creating an immense, impassable distance. Sarah had become suspicious, then resentful and finally cold. A separation was filed 6 months ago, and Jack had been too consumed by the Calderon operation to fight for his family. It was a choice that would prove disastrous. Liam was Jack's anchor to a life he was losing. Their Saturday phone calls, made with burner phones and strict security protocols, were sacred. Liam was a sharp boy who had his father's strategic mind and his mother's emotional intelligence. He was mature beyond his years, understanding that his father's work was both dangerous and essential. He never complained about the missed birthdays or school events, a selflessness that would ultimately save them both. Sarah's new relationship had seemed harmless at first. She'd mentioned she was seeing a businessman named Emilio. He was stable and present, she said, unlike Jack. The cruel irony of the name wasn't lost on Jack, but he was too focused on his mission to ask questions. He'd dismissed it as a bizarre coincidence. But the truth was far more sinister. Emilio Calderon had been watching Jack's family for months. Facial recognition software had identified discrepancies in Marco Velasquez's identity, and a closer investigation led him to Jack's family. Emilio's approach to Sarah was a masterpiece of manipulation. He positioned himself in her daily life, a constant presence without being too forward, until she made the first move. He played the part of a successful entrepreneur, charming and patient. In a short time, Sarah was completely captivated. She unwittingly shared intimate details about her estranged husband, his habits, his paranoia about being watched, and the scars he carried. Emilio meticulously cataloged all of it, building a psychological profile of Marco Velasquez through his wife's casual conversation. His plan was simple and brutal. If Marco was a federal agent, he would destroy him using his own family as a weapon. If Marco was a rival, the same strategy would eliminate a threat while extracting maximum suffering. Sarah's betrayal was far more damaging than simple infidelity. In her loneliness, she began to confide in Emilio about her suspicions regarding Jack. When he feigned concern for her safety, she described the strange car she'd seen and the secretive late-night phone calls Jack made. Emilio encouraged her, validating her fears and feeding her resentment. She soon became an unwitting intelligence asset. On one of Jack's rare visits home, she photographed his go bag, believing she was collecting evidence of an affair. Instead, she was giving the cartel images of advanced government-issued equipment. She also shared details about his sleep patterns and emotional vulnerabilities, all in the guise of confiding in a supportive partner. The truth about Marco Velasquez's identity was discovered through a combination of old-fashioned police work and modern technology. A corrupt border patrol agent, a contact of one of Emilio's men, ran Marco's face through federal databases. The match was undeniable. Jack Hunter, decorated Marine, DEA veteran, and father of one son, Liam Hunter, a sophomore at Northside High. The file was comprehensive, including their home address, Sarah's work schedule, and Liam's school routine. Emilio's initial fury at being deceived quickly turned into cold anticipation. This wasn't about simply killing a federal agent. It was about sending a message. The Calderon cartel would not just kill an operative. They would obliterate him, his family, and his legacy. Emilio's plan was a masterpiece of psychological precision. Jack would be forced to watch his son die, then his wife before being killed himself. But not quickly. Emilio planned to keep Jack alive for days, dismantling his life piece by piece while extracting information about other undercover operations. Meanwhile, Jack, focused on his mission, remained completely unaware that his family had become pawns in a game he didn't even know he was playing. Liam was the first to realize something was wrong. Emilio's presence in their home felt invasive. He asked too many questions about Jack and seemed to be studying them rather than bonding with them. When Liam told his mother about his concerns, Sarah dismissed them as jealousy. She was so grateful for Emilio's attention that she interpreted her son's caution as selfish. This growing tension between mother and son created the perfect cover for Emilio's true intentions. The call came on what should have been Jack's final day undercover. He was in a warehouse in Tijuana, finalizing details for a major arms shipment that would be the sting's climax. Hidden recorders were capturing the cartel's entire distribution network. His burner phone vibrated with a call from Liam's number. Professional protocol dictated he ignore it, but paternal instinct took over. He stepped away from the cartel members and answered. "Dad, they know." Liam's voice was a mix of terror and rage. "Mom's new boyfriend is the cartel boss. He has us tied up. He said you have to choose who dies first when you walk in." The world narrowed, every sound in the warehouse becoming hyper-distinct. The shuffle of feet, the faint whisper of the wind, the distant hum of traffic. Jack's mind processed the information with machine-like efficiency, even as his heart splintered into 1,000 pieces. Emilio knew. He had known all along. The entire operation was a trap. His family wasn't just in danger. They were already captured, already being used as weapons against him. "Liam, listen to me carefully," Jack whispered, backing into the shadows. "Are you in the house?" "Yeah, in the basement. Mom's here too. Dad, he knows everything about you. He says he's been planning this." Liam's voice broke. "Mom didn't know. She's crying and says she's sorry." Then the line went dead. Jack stared at his silent phone for 3 full seconds, his professional mind racing through options, while his emotional core erupted into a force beyond rage. He'd spent 18 months building Marco Velasquez's reputation as a dangerous but controllable criminal. Now, he would show Emilio Calderon what Jack Hunter was truly capable of. Without a second thought, he burned his cover. He walked back toward the meeting and shed the identity of Marco Velasquez like a snake shedding old skin. His posture straightened, his accent disappeared, and his eyes became as cold as Arctic ice. The cartel members noticed the change immediately. The dangerous trafficker they knew was gone, replaced by something far more lethal. "Gentlemen," Jack announced, his voice commanding, "this meeting is over. You're all under arrest." The violence that followed was swift and total. These were hardened killers, but Jack had been a Marine sniper first. 18 months of careful observation had shown him every weakness in their operation. His first shot took out the warehouse's electrical system, plunging the space into darkness. His night vision goggles gave him a decisive advantage. The cartel members' panicked gunfire only illuminated their positions, revealing nothing of his. Jack moved through the warehouse like death incarnate, eliminating threats with surgical precision. These weren't arrests. They were executions, each one a message to Emilio. The hunter had become the hunted, and mercy was no longer an option. Within 8 minutes, 7 cartel members lay dead. Jack's DEA extraction team arrived to find him gone, along with the entire communication array and a few vehicles. He vanished into the Mexican underground with resources and intelligence that made him more dangerous than any criminal Emilio had ever faced. The race back to San Diego became a blur of speed and violence. Jack commandeered vehicles, changed identities, and crossed borders using methods that existed outside the legal system. His go bag, retrieved from a secure location, contained enough firepower to level a city block and communication equipment that would make him invisible to both law enforcement and criminal surveillance. As he drove through the night, a terrible realization solidified. The timeline was wrong. For Emilio to have planned this level of infiltration, he would have needed months of preparation. This meant Sarah's involvement wasn't accidental. She had been providing the cartel with everything they needed, whether she knew it or not, to compromise the operation and target their family. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. Jack's phone rang as he neared the California border. It was Emilio, calling from Liam's number. "Agent Hunter." Emilio's voice was slick with satisfaction. "Marco Velasquez was so much more interesting than I expected. A decorated Marine-turned-DEA operative 18 months deep in my organization. Truly impressive. Where are they?" Jack's voice held the promise of ultimate violence. "Safe for now. Your wife is quite beautiful, by the way. We've become very close. She's told me so much about you. Your habits, your fears, your weaknesses. Did you know she photographs your equipment when you visit? Very thorough documentation." The confirmation of Sarah's betrayal hit Jack like a physical blow, but he channeled the pain into fuel for what was coming. I'm going to kill you, Emilio. Not arrest you. Kill you and everyone you've ever cared about. Emilio laughed. Perhaps. But first, you're going to watch your family die. Your son has been very brave, very defiant. It will be entertaining to break that spirit while you watch. As for your wife, she'll learn the price of pillow talk with cartel leaders. 24 hours, Jack said calmly. Disappear, release them, and you get a 24-hour head start. Refuse, and I'll make you beg for death before this ends. Agent Hunter, you seem to misunderstand. Emilio's voice was mocking. You're not in a position to make demands. You're going to walk into my house, unarmed and alone, or I'll start removing pieces of your family, beginning with your son's fingers. The line went dead. Jack was left alone with the weight of an impossible choice. The house looked exactly as Jack remembered. Suburban normalcy concealing a domestic nightmare. Emilio's security was professional but predictable, with perimeter sensors, roving patrols, and sniper positions that revealed themselves to anyone with Jack's training. The cartel leader was confident but not careless, which would make the coming violence more challenging and far more satisfying. Jack didn't approach the house right away. Instead, he spent 6 hours in surveillance, mapping every security measure while his rage hardened into something stronger than steel. This wasn't about rescue anymore. It was about delivering a consequence that would echo through the criminal world for generations. He began with psychological warfare. Using communication equipment from his go bag, Jack hacked into Emilio's security network and began a systematic demolition of the cartel leader's life. Bank accounts in 17 countries vanished into a digital void. Safe houses across 3 continents received simultaneous federal raids coordinated through Jack's DEA contacts. Business partners found themselves under investigation by agencies they'd never heard of. Within hours, Emilio Calderon went from untouchable crime lord to hunted fugitive. But that was just the beginning. Jack's next move involved Emilio's own organization. The cartel leader's paranoia about loyalty was legendary, and Jack weaponized it. Using intercepted communications and a deep knowledge of the organization, Jack fed disinformation to rival factions within the cartel, suggesting that Emilio was planning to eliminate potential threats. The result was chaos. Emilio's most trusted lieutenants began turning on each other, convinced that the others were planning a betrayal. The organization that had taken Emilio years to build began to consume itself from within. Psychological and organizational warfare were not enough. This required personal attention. Jack entered the house through a drainage system he'd mapped during his surveillance, a route that didn't exist on any architectural plan. The basement where his family was held became accessible through methods that bypassed every one of Emilio's security measures. Liam and Sarah were bound but unharmed, guarded by 2 men who had grown complacent during their long watch. Jack's approach was as silent as a ghost, honed by years of missions where discovery meant annihilation. The guards died without a sound, a struggle, or a warning. Dad. Liam's whisper was filled with disbelief and desperate hope. I'm here, son. Jack's voice was gentle as he cut his family's restraints, but his eyes were cold and flat. Sarah couldn't meet his gaze. Jack, I'm so sorry. I didn't know who he was. You did know. Jack's voice held no warmth, no forgiveness. You photographed my equipment. You shared details about my work, my schedule, my vulnerabilities. Whether you knew who Emilio was or not, you betrayed everything we built together. Sarah's tears meant nothing to him now. The woman he'd loved was gone, replaced by someone who had chosen comfort over loyalty. She had made her choice months ago. Now she would live with the consequences. Liam, stay with your mother, Jack said. Don't leave this room until I come back. Dad, there are 12 of them upstairs, Liam said. Plus Emilio. They're expecting you. I know. Jack's smile was chilling. They're expecting Marco Velasquez to surrender. They're about to meet Jack Hunter at war. The slaughter that followed would be spoken of in hushed tones throughout the criminal underworld for years. Jack moved through Emilio's house like a force of nature, eliminating threats with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. These weren't arrests or self-defense killings. This was a systematic execution. Each death was calculated to increase Emilio's psychological pressure. Jack left the bodies where they fell, creating a trail of carnage that led inexorably toward the cartel leader. The message was clear. There would be no escape, no negotiation, no mercy. Emilio's legendary composure finally broke when he found his personal bodyguard, a man who had never failed him, hanging from a second-floor balcony with his own intestines. His hands shook as he tried to contact his remaining security, only to discover that Jack had systematically dismantled his entire protection network. Velasquez. Emilio's voice echoed through the house. Whatever your real name is, let's finish this. Jack Hunter, Jack replied from somewhere in the darkness. Remember that name when you're screaming. The final confrontation took place in Emilio's study, surrounded by his bone trophies. The cartel leader stood behind his desk, automatic weapon trained on the doorway, sweat streaming down his face despite the air conditioning. Jack appeared not through the door, but through the window behind Emilio, moving with a speed that seemed to defy physics. The cartel leader's weapon flew from his hands, his shoulder dislocated by the impact. Emilio crashed to the floor among his collection of bones, his own skeleton now at risk of joining the display. "Please," Emilio gasped, his earlier arrogance gone, replaced by pure terror. "I'll give you anything. Money, territory, information about other cartels, whatever you want." Jack knelt beside the broken man, his voice conversational. "What I want is for you to understand something. You thought you were hunting a criminal. You were wrong. You thought you could threaten my family. You were wrong. You thought you knew what fear meant. You were wrong about that too. What happened next would never appear in any official report." The sounds that came from Emilio's study suggested a level of suffering that transcended physical pain. When silence finally returned, Jack emerged alone. Liam and Sarah were waiting in the basement, their faces reflecting the knowledge that the man who had rescued them was no longer entirely human. The violence upstairs had transformed Jack into something harder and colder than Arctic steel. "It's over," he said. "Liam, we're leaving now." "What about Mom?" Liam looked between his parents, realizing their family was shattered beyond repair. "Your mother made her choice. She chose Emilio over us. Comfort over loyalty, betrayal over marriage. She'll live with those consequences." Jack's voice held no emotion, no anger, no forgiveness. "The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. Custody will be sole and non-negotiable." Sarah's tears fell unheard as father and son walked away from the wreckage of their family. She had traded everything that mattered for the illusion of security with a monster, and now she faced a future defined by that decision. In the weeks that followed, the Calderon cartel collapsed. Rival organizations carved up their territory, while federal agencies mopped up the remnants of Emilio's network. The official report credited intercartel warfare and coordinated law enforcement pressure for the organization's destruction. Only a few people knew the truth, that a single federal agent had systematically annihilated one of North America's most powerful criminal organizations using nothing but tactical expertise, psychological warfare, and a father's love transformed into implacable vengeance. Jack Hunter requested a transfer to domestic operations, citing family considerations. His superiors granted the request without question. His success with the Calderon operation had earned him any assignment he desired. Liam adapted to their new life with a resilience that reminded Jack daily why the boy was worth any sacrifice. Sarah disappeared into witness protection after receiving threats from surviving cartel members who blamed her for their organization's collapse. Her new identity came with federal marshals and a life of constant vigilance, but no family to share it with. She had chosen excitement over loyalty, and excitement was all she had left. On quiet evenings, when Liam was studying and the house felt almost normal again, Jack sometimes reflected on the cost of his choices. He had destroyed a criminal empire, eliminated dozens of threats to public safety, and protected his son from unimaginable danger. But he had also crossed lines that could never be uncrossed, becoming something that existed outside the law he had sworn to uphold. The price of betrayal, he learned, was paid by everyone involved. Emilio Calderon paid with his life and his organization. Sarah paid with her family and her freedom. And Jack Hunter had paid with pieces of his soul that could never be recovered. But Liam was safe. The cartel was destroyed. And justice, harsh and personal though it was, had been served. In the end, that was enough. It had to be enough because Jack Hunter had learned something Emilio Calderon never understood. There are some lines that, once crossed, can never be forgiven. And there are some people who, once betrayed, will never stop hunting those responsible. The hunter had become the hunted. The hunted had become the hunter. In the end, only the strongest survived. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.